Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
How the enemies work together, the friendship between Tehran, Beijing, and Moscow, and perhaps that is causing people to shift their focus here.
Little Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting. The world will be watching to see what, if any, response there will be to Israel's limited attack on Iran this weekend. And then the issue of U.S. aid to Israel and Ukraine could be resolved in Congress Saturday night. Let's go to Ukraine and Joseph Lindsley. Joe, what are you hearing there about all of this today?
Well, Bob, hello from Kyiv. And as I speak to you, we have reports of Russian missiles launched to the city of Odessa. And it was an eventful night throughout much of Ukraine, something that's weighing very heavily on people here. We had reports right about midnight, right as people are trying to get some sleep, that Russian bombers were airborne, a significant number. So this almost always means there's going to be some kind of attack throughout the night. And, just imagine, how do you sleep, during that? And so for most of the people in the country, it was a fitful night, waiting to see, you sort of wake up many times waiting to see if missiles are on the way. Maybe they already hit, maybe you didn't hear them. Here in Kyiv, it was calm, but the Russians did attack several cities, including the city of Dnipro, that city in the south of more than 1 million people. And they hit right in the heart of the city. They hit the railway station, the central railway station, and some of the surrounding buildings. And this, really hurts people. I mean, every bit of this is painful. But, the Ukrainian railways have been such a lifeblood for this country during this time. And, everyone from foreign journalists to, foreign aid workers to grandmothers and children take the trains. And when something like this happens and you look at the smoldering scenes there at the central railway station, that beautiful grand building in the center of Dnipro, it's an image that sticks in everyone's mind. You can't go to a train station now without seeing this imprint of a major Ukrainian city with have the images of Russians having attacked that central railway station. And, it's always hard to know the exact number of fatalities. I mean, that's why I never really like to cite those numbers. I mean, sometimes the Russians really hit what they want to hit. We don't know in this case. And sometimes, there are many more deaths than Ukraine can report for safety reasons. But we do know that at least one 8-year-old child was killed in this attack. And then we had reports that one of the Russian bombers that was part of this attack fell from the sky. So this made people happy. We don't know if Ukraine was able somehow to shoot it down. It was pretty deep into Russia. So that's a bit of a mystery. But at least one of the Russian bombers that was part of this attack did fall from the sky. And perhaps that's a reason why Kyiv was not bombed last night. But it was very difficult scenes in that city of Dnipro. And, as I think about today, it was, once, the rain has sort of left Kyiv. It's a sunny afternoon here. I'm running through the city, and I pass by the Golden Dome Monastery of St. Michael the Archangel, the patron of Kyiv. And I can tell that there's a funeral. I can see the solemn faces of everyone in the surrounding blocks. And it was a funeral of Pavlo Petroshenko. He was a fighter with the 59th Separate Motorized Infantry Brigade. And he had been a hero going back to the days of Maidan, of that 2014 Revolution of Dignity, and a well-beloved corruption fighter in Ukraine. And, this is another thing that really hurts people here. Russia is killing the very people who've been working to get rid of corruption. The very people that, if Russia did occupy more of Ukraine, these would be the people that would give Russia trouble, because these are the people who run to the fight. And so you could see, crowds of people at that Golden Dome Monastery, that same monastery that had been so central to the revolution in 2014. And now, so often, it's the site of these funerals. And the Petroshenko, he died. He was like a few hours short of turning 32 years old. And his last 2 tweets are incredibly haunting, just a day before he died. And you have to wonder, just how bad it is there at the front. and I think he was sending a message. He said, this is a translation. He said, you have to constantly be toxic and angry so that some obvious things can reach you somewhere in a month or two. It's tiring, to be honest. And so far, not a single person has apologized to me. You know, you can wonder, I mean, just imagine here's someone in the trenches at the front, perhaps needing equipment and making this cry for help out of frustration. And then he also retweeted a tweet of another Ukrainian. And this really, I think, was a pain for many people. He said, it's a pity that the days of the Maidan have passed. And the Maidan is that revolution that occurred just steps away from that monastery where he was buried, where his funeral was held today. The Maidan is the public square of Kyiv, and that's where the revolution happened in 2014. It's where Ukrainians said we are free of Russian control after centuries of resistance. And it's just to hear this warrior, just moments, really hours or maybe a day before he died, to tweet those words. It's a pity that the days of Maidan have passed. You can see the pain he was going through. And yet, as I went around Kyiv today, I mean, you see the outpouring of support for him, both here in the city and online. You know that each one of these moments, gives Ukrainians further impetus not to give up, but still very, very heavy scenes here in Kyiv and especially in Dnipro today.
Very sad to hear of the death and destruction. And with the focus now and all the headlines and our attention on what has happened in the Middle East in the last hours, is it frustrating for you, Joseph? Do you feel forgotten?
Well, I mean, I don't know how qualified I am to speak officially on politics, but I would say that there is a lot. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, his speech or his remarks the other day, that has given people lots of encouragement here in Ukraine. And, it's pretty notable that House Democrats, a few of them in a pretty extraordinary move, are working with Speaker Johnson to get this Ukraine aid pushed through. And notably, Speaker Johnson in this new proposal is actually putting pressure on the White House to send long-range weapons to Ukraine. So I think people are a bit surprised about this. There's a lot, but they're all holding out hope. But it's moments like that do give people great energy amid these difficult scenes that we face here every day.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was reading about what changed the speaker's mind, because, as you know, he was pretty vocally against aid to Ukraine. And he says that a lot of the intelligence briefings he got really turned him around. So you have to admire the guy, don't you?
Well, it's remarkable because, right after October 7th, after Hamas attacked Israel, he very clearly said, these are two separate things. We're going to push Ukraine off for a while. We have to focus on Israel. That was his belief and mentality. He's clearly changed his tune, and he's really being heavily attacked in nasty ways online. But it does seem that he's starting to see. You just look at how the enemies work together. The friendship between Tehran, Beijing, and Moscow, and perhaps that is causing people to shift their focus here, and to see the possibility again, also the possibility that Ukraine, is not totally helpless, and something that I did not report the other day, but. On April 17th, a couple of days ago, Ukraine had yet another successful operation in the occupied Crimean Peninsula, destroying Russian missile launchers and, very crucially, Russian radar detection systems, which Russia needs in order to launch these full-scale attacks. And so behind the scenes, Ukrainians are still doing some extraordinary things to weaken Russian ability to launch these massive attacks, even as we still have these moments of tragedy as we've seen in the past 24 hours.
And when you mentioned the criticism Speaker Johnson is getting, I'm reminded of the recent Washington Post story about Russian trolls targeting the United States, targeting people who support Ukraine and maybe to a degree Israel too. Who knows where these posts come from? We should get into that a little bit more next week. But I know you think about that, don't you?
Well, I get very nasty personal messages. So I think I experienced it. I have a firsthand I have a first row seat to the Russian troll activity.
Yeah, some of it is definitely coming from Russia. Well, Joseph, I hope you have a peaceful weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що він сказав?
Well, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні,
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
на чиїй ти стороні.
Єбать.